You're watching Liquid Lunch on NEWSMAX TV. I'm Frank Morano, sitting in for John Tabacco. A gentleman that sounds very much like John Tabacco is sitting to my left, although he happens to be dressed like President Donald Trump. Speaking of Donald Trump, he's getting some criticism for not informing congressional leaders of a raid that took place in Syria, which ended up killing the head of ISIS, Abu al-Bakr al-Baghdadi.
Leaking machine. They're a leaking machine. They're a leaking machine. I can't tell them anything.
In order to help us,
are not good people. They're a leaking machine.
In order to help us break this down and understand what the implications are for our fight against ISIS, we wanted to reach out to Tania Joya, who's the former wife of a leading member of ISIS who has now been deceased. Tania, thanks so much for coming on television with us.
Thank you for having me here.
So just in a nutshell, so folks know your story, how did you end up married to a leading ISIS terrorist?
Well, we got married in 2003. We were both 19 years old at the time, and we had met online. And at that time, he wasn't a terrorist, but he was a supporter of terrorism. We were married for 10 years, and then we grew apart over those years, and he went on to help create ISIS, and he was their leading propagandist. He wrote a lot of articles for their magazines, which were called TABACCO and Rumia. And I went my own way, and I became Americanized, and yeah, so
and how did he ultimately come to be deceased? Was he killed in an American raid?
No. Well, some ISIS supporters say he's been killed, and others say he's still alive. So, and there's no way we can get proof that he's died. But the reports are that he died in the Battle of Mayadeen, which was it's a city that was struck by Russians and Syrian forces, but not by Americans.
Got it. So tell me where you think ISIS is now that the head of ISIS, al-Baghdadi, has been killed. Where do you think they go?
Like a dog.
Do they bounce back and just keep trolling on, or is this a pretty devastating blow to them organizationally?
Both. It was a devastating blow, but I mean, they won't say that. They won't admit it. But it is, and they're going to bounce back. They like a lot of the people who are in that region, the supporters of ISIS, they still believe in the cause because they really don't have any other idea about anything else. Like, that's all they know now, and so they're going to keep pursuing a caliphate. And in the Philippines, they're very dominant there. I mean, on some islands, not all, not the whole region.
Why do so many Muslims around the world, and I understand percentage-wise it's still a very small number, but in the aggregate it's fairly large, why do so many of them become radicalized, and what can we do in Western society to keep folks from becoming extremists and becoming radicalized?
So from what I know, a lot of Muslims in the West, in particular, who become radicalized, it's usually after facing some sort of trauma, and then their outlet is to turn to Islam, and the propaganda that we read as Muslims when we go online, it's Wahhabi propaganda. The sect of Islam that they're preaching is very primitive. It's very going back to the 7th and 6th century and having their morals. So, you know, they're really just turning to faith, but it's the wrong faith. And their God is a rather angry 7th century style, or a God that, you know, has mood swings. And so they want to replicate their God. They want to be like God. And in the Quran and in Islam, God is an angry God that emphasizes torture and hell and anger and revenge, and so these people become very much of that mentality, and rather than having a more peaceful God or someone like Buddha.
Well, thank you very much, Tania. I appreciate you joining us, and I hope we'll talk to you again soon.
Okay, you're very welcome.
Thank you. It's Tania Joya talking a little bit about how folks become radicalized and turn to social extreme ideology.
Terrible people.
Now, Mr. President, when we come back after a brief pause, we're going to talk with Alex Sarr, who is a celebrity psychic.
Did I mention that Baghdadi was crying and screaming and whimpering like a dog?
We're going to see if we can talk to him next when we commune with the dead. You're watching Liquid Lunch.
Not a good place to be.